This week on Deer and Deer Hunting, it's all about the unusual.
So we've all seen deer that have one really nice side and something wrong with the other side in terms of antlers. Usually this is caused by some sort of body injury. Now, we also know a lot about the leg effect. This is where the front left leg affects the left antler, or the back right leg affects the left antler. This is because the nerves cross midway between the deer. What the nerves then do is send a signal to the antler or to the deer and say, hey, I need resources on this back right leg so that I can heal myself. And what that does is it takes the resources away from that left antler. The same would be for the right antler. If there was an injury in the front right leg, they would take resources from that right antler and apply them to that front right leg until it is healed. Now, some of these injuries may only last 1 year. The next year, that deer could be a perfect 10 or 12 point. However, there's a lot of times that if it's a severe injury, it may last multiple years, even the lifetime of that buck. So we all know that deer antlers are in the growing stage when they're in velvet. However, what a lot of people don't know is that it's a very soft, sensitive material, and that just a minor injury to it could really throw a huge effect in terms of that antler conformation. However, this is just an annual effect, because once that deer sheds the antlers, the next year he'll be growing a brand new set of antlers that may not be affected. It all depends on what is the injury to that velvet tip when it's actually growing. Just like any tissue, velvet has many blood vessels and arteries running through it, and it's an actively living and growing tissue. So, just like you can get an infection in the velvet. This infection can then swell up and become filled with pus or any other kind of infectious liquid that then can affect the antler. We see this in deer that have huge round balls on top of their antlers or on the sides of them. So often when we see these antler velvet infections or these round balls on the antler, we kind of look at them and think, man, that would be really cool to see a hardened softball or bowling sized ball on an antler. But it's not going to happen. What's usually going to happen is before that deer is into the hardening or calcification process, which happens in August or September, he's probably going to pop it. But this also leaves the deer vulnerable to bacteria to get in, which could be fatal to him. Even if it lasts to the calcification process, it's then going to be discarded. It's either going to pop or it's going to fall off. So you're not going to have that deer running around with a bowling ball on one side and his head leaning over towards that side. So one thing I get asked a lot as a biologist is that someone has shot a deer with, quote, warts. These warts are what we call cutaneous fibromas. And basically, they are a wart. They're growing on the skin or the hide of the deer. They're caused by a viral agent. However, it's not a virus that we think of that can be passed along. What it is it's going to just apply to the hide of the deer. A lot of times people think, well, I'm not going to eat this deer. It's just like anything else. When you remove the hide, it's not going to affect the meat. And really, the deer's not even affected. The only time a deer is going to be affected by these cutaneous fibromas is if they start to gather around the eyes and the mouth, which affects its movement and vision, but also could affect its eating. Otherwise, it's just a benign effect on a deer. We often see variations in the hide color of deer as well. This could be anything from a pure white or an albino deer to a pure black or melanistic deer. The most common thing that we're going to see is what we call piebald, where it has blotches of white or non-pigment areas on the skin. You'll then see albinos being still rare, but more common than the melanistic, which is the rarest of all forms.